The Las Vegas Raiders have several players returning to practice on the field right now. This is great news if you're a Raiders fan and you're kind of worried about this game we have coming up 22 days from now, September 11th against the Chargers. Darren Waller has returned to practice after hanging out a week ago at the Aces game with Mark Davis and then hanging out at the Aces game during our last preseason game while Mark Davis was there, but they were sitting in different locations. However, Darren Waller is back. Probably a contract is in the mix. We know that's something that's on his mind, something that he briefly talks about on tons of talk shows like Bussin' with the Boys with Will Compton. He was on there, and he even went as far as to say that it's his last year with Foster Moreau, implying that the Raiders would not be able to afford both Foster Moreau and Darren Waller. Big, bold statements by this guy. Either way, hopefully we get a contract soon, and it's good to see Darren Waller on the field. One of the best weapons on the Las Vegas Raiders for a long time. You know, nobody can deny that. And another person that you cannot deny is the former second-round pick, Trayvon Mullen. Trayvon Mullen is back on the field. So good to see this guy back after, given the fact that he only played barely 8 games last year in 2021. People forget this guy was our #1 cornerback prior to Casey Hayward coming here last year, and Casey Hayward has gone on to move on to the Falcons. Hey, in 2020, Trayvon Mullen was our #1 cornerback, was our #1 guy. Yes, it's not that hard to be the #1 guy when you're competing with Netway, but still, Trayvon Mullen was our #1 guy, solid cornerback. Glad to see him healthy, and hopefully he could bounce back to what he did in 2019 and 2020, what made him so impressive to be the #1 cornerback for the Las Vegas Raiders. And another person who's projected to be our #1 cornerback, maybe #2, the guy who we traded Yannick Ngakoue for. We traded Yannick Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin, and Rock Ya-Sin is back. Rock Ya-Sin had really not been at practice for almost 3 weeks, was not, around at the Hall of Fame game, was missing practice prior to the Hall of Fame game, along with Darren Waller, by the way. This guy was missing time even around then, but Rock Ya-Sin is back. Maybe we have our starting lineup at cornerback. We know Anthony Averett is in the mix as well. Obviously, Nate Hobbs is going to be part of that starting 3 cornerback rotation, but who's going to be on the outside? Nate Hobbs had some snaps on the outside. We know Trayvon Mullen typically plays on the outside, and so does Rock Ya-Sin. But I'd be totally happy with the combination of Trayvon Mullen, Rock Ya-Sin, and then Nate Hobbs in the slot. I think every Raiders fan would be content with that. We'll see what Patrick Graham has in store for his secondary. And another group that is great to see back are the interior defensive tackles. The Raiders were straight owned in the run game just this past week. It was embarrassing against the Minnesota Vikings. And yes, we do need some more interior help in the defensive line. Bilal Nichols was signed to a hefty contract. I mean, making roughly $6 million a year for the Las Vegas Raiders at that defensive tackle position. And Johnathan Hankins coming back after being a part of the Raiders since 2018, signing a 1-year deal. This guy will provide a lot of help at the nose tackle position, and maybe the Raiders coaching staff has been confident in Johnathan Hankins returning, and that's why they've let go of players like Vernon Butler in the defensive side of the ball. And Divine Diablo has also returned. He has been out since the Hall of Fame game, wasn't at practice since then, but good to see the up-and-coming linebacker back on the field. So this is good news for the Raiders, getting really a stronger roster than we've already seen demonstrated in the first 2 weeks of preseason. And there was some anxiety brewing. Hey, Darren Waller, if it's an injury, is it going to bleed into week 1? The secondary, the starting secondary, it felt for a while, oh wow, we only have Nate Hobbs in our starting cornerback rotation. So what's going to happen week 1 against Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams? But the Raiders seem to be in better shape. And guess what? The Raiders have made some tough decisions yesterday. They released a lot of players, DeMarcus Robinson included. And now that you're getting reinforcements in this cornerback room, it seems like the competition has changed. It seems like there is more room available for some of these cornerbacks, but that has changed. Had there been a long sustaining injury for Trayvon Mullen or Rock Ya-Sin or even Anthony Averett, the jury's still out because he's not at practice right now, then you have to wonder, hey, can these people compete for a higher spot? That's clearly not the case anymore. So for somebody like Amik Robinson, who's been out there, in preseason, he's really now competing for the 5th, spot on this depth chart, maybe 6th, given the fact that the Raiders know they're going to have a healthy Trayvon Mullen and Rock Ya-Sin. The Raiders also traded Tyree Gillespie yesterday, which means that there's probably some decisions made already about our safety room. Obviously, signing Darren Harmon was going to make things difficult for Tyree Gillespie for him to get on the field this year. It seems like we already have our starting rotation. Seeing Johnathan Abram out there with Trayvon Merring, it seems like free safety Trayvon Merring, starting strong safety Johnathan Abram. And when we do occasionally, bring the safety in the slot, Patrick Graham likes to do that, then you'll probably see Darren Harmon at the strong safety position, and you'll see Johnathan Abram lined up at sub linebacker sometimes or sometimes in the slot. So interesting to see that there. And then Roderick Teamer, now that he's healthy, now that he's back, seems like he solidified some type of role as a depth piece for the safety position. Who knows? Maybe there's something behind the scenes we don't know, but I think we're going to keep 4 safeties, and really that 4th spot's up for grabs. Roderick Teamer seems like he has some leverage there, but Polamalu, Quinterio Cole, and Matthias Farley, the veteran, are going to try to compete for that spot, and we'll see what happens there. But the Raiders are still missing players at practice, and this has happened today according to Deshaun Reed of The Athletic. No Josh Jacobs, no Brandon Parker still. There's been some rumors that he is on IR, but nothing has been confirmed by the organization. And you would think if Brandon Parker did sustain an injury that was a year-long injury, I believe the organization would want to put him on IR as soon as possible, because that opens up a roster spot and they could start training with somebody else, practicing with another player, developing a new player if Parker's not going to be available. So perhaps Parker is going to come back at some point during the season, something not IR worthy. Cleveland Ferrell, he has missed some time. Again, with the IR statement, I believe that same case is true. If he was significantly injured, you'd want to place somebody like Cleveland Ferrell on IR. Last I checked on Spotrac.com, if you do release Cleveland Ferrell, you do not lose or gain any cap money. It's like 9.9, 9.9. You free up 9.9 in cap, you eat 9.9 in dead money in cap. So Cleveland Ferrell is probably going to be coming back soon, but this guy has not been around for a while. Ever since the undisclosed injury, we have not seen Cleveland Ferrell, and this happened before the Hall of Fame game. Brandon Parker, Cleveland Ferrell, Anthony Averett, some people who've been missing time for a while. Josh Jacobs, I had not seen him this past week. I did not see him on the sidelines during that preseason game. Let me know in the comments if you saw him in the sidelines during the preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings. But Jacobs is not at practice today. Hopefully it's no big deal. Clearly still believe he is the best running back on the roster, and I believe he demonstrated that in the first Hall of Fame game. Speaking of the running back room, I think this is going to be the next critical position in terms of cuts. The Raiders made some cuts yesterday. Then they're going to have to make some more cuts August 23rd. I think it's going to be a running back decision around that time. We'll see how it shakes out, but we are probably going to keep 5 running backs on the roster. You've heard positive reports about Amir Abdullah. Kenyon Drake has been out there in both preseason games, and you did not see Amir Abdullah in this previous preseason game. So you have to wonder, is there a battle there? Does Amir Abdullah have some upper hand as this kind of receiving back in comparison to Kenyon Drake? You would assume that's his type of role. The Raiders are in a tricky position with Kenyon Drake. From how I understand it, according to overthecap.com, with Kenyon Drake, if the Raiders just straight up release him, they lose $4 million in dead money. That's how it that's how it works out. That's the difference. But if they trade him, they free up $2 million in cap. So it seems like the Raiders would only ever be able to move on from Kenyon Drake where it makes sense for both sides if it was via trade. If it was via trade, that's the only way it happened. Obviously, Amir Abdullah is on a 1-year free agent contract with no guarantees. Zamir White obviously is going to be making this 53-man roster. So when you're trying to talk about who are the 5 running backs, and I'm not talking about fullback because we know Jakob Johnson's the fullback. Which 5 running backs are going to be on this team? I think that's going to be critical when it comes to August 23rd. You could say Jacobs, Drake, Zamir White, Brandon Bolden. Brandon Bolden's on that 2-year deal with $5 million guaranteed. So whether Raider Nation likes it or not, because I know a lot of people are unfamiliar with him and he hasn't played much, so he hasn't really impressed the fans and had a highlight reel to excite the fans. But this guy's going to be on the team. I mean, more than likely he's going to be on the team. That's the way the money's going. So Britton Brown, Amir Abdullah, Kenyon Drake, Andrew Walter. I feel like this is where the battle is when it comes to 5 running backs on the roster. Maybe Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Brandon Bolden, Zamir White, and maybe you get Amir Abdullah as well. I don't know. It's going to be some tricky stuff. Let me know who you think are going to be the 5 running backs on this roster, or do you think we're only going to keep 4? The Patriots kept 5 last year, so that's why I assumed maybe the Raiders would keep 5 this year. Either way, time will tell. Hey, my name is WiFiWillie. Like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the Raiders Rundown for more Raiders content. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.